This is a story of Tyra Jarvis, founder and president of Kefi Coaching. She also serves on the board of Stand Up Placer, supporting survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. You can download her free ebook, Living Your Extraordinary Life, a guide for reinventing your life, at tyrajarvis.com/free. Tira, one of the services you offer through Kefi Coaching is helping your clients get focused and motivated and moving forward. What challenges are people facing in the pandemic?
Nan, the pandemic is clearly a time of uncertainty, and yet if we're really accurate about it, we've always had uncertainty. In fact, the only certainty is uncertainty. And so how different people respond to it is probably directly related to how they're impacted by the uncertainty. So certainly unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are affected by the illness and by the virus, and they're dealing with their families, and that's one part of it. But, people that are, kind of in the shelter in place and trying to protect themselves as others, it's really all coming down to fear and survival. And what do we have to do to protect that? And yet, if we stay there, we'll stay stuck and we won't be ready when it does pass, and it will move on. We've had, historically pandemics have moved on and markets have crashed. And there's been things that happen. So we know that it's going to move on, but, just the whole fear and anxiety around the uncertainty. And then some people, it's new to work from home. They've never done it. Other people have worked from home, but now they can't go out and socialize. I think for many people that are sheltered at home by themselves, it's a reminder that their partner's missing, where other people have at least their home, but they're home with their families. So everybody has a different spin on what it is, but it's really trying to gain power and control what you can control in the environment. That's really where we want to try to help people get focused around that. And that would be a central theme in the work that I do for sure.
Well, it sounds like it is. And as you say, it's hard to categorize it even, or certainly pigeonhole people. If you're a healthcare worker, you're going to probably have a lot different perspective on it than you will if you're doing something else like staying at home, as many of us are.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your response to the challenges that people have?
I actually, for me, I have a home-based business and I've been on the internet for a while. And fortunately for me, I had 2 programs that were getting ready to start since the first of the year. And I have 2 live groups that we're working with right now. And so a lot of the focus has been around shortening up the focus on their goals and having the goal be month to month, and then shoring up their mindset and their self-care so that they can stay positive and to continue to look for solutions, even if it's just a solution to get groceries, as opposed to a business problem that they're trying to find a solution for. So we need to stay positive. I encourage them to work on mindset and self-care, having your daily routines and learning how to work from home. There's tons of tips out there. We're constantly looking at different kinds of resources that people share so that you can create it for yourself, like what's going to work for you. And then trying to be mindful of the situation and its impact and not try to do too much. Do one thing. Like if you're going to have a morning routine, add one thing to your morning routine. Don't try to do all of it at once. This is an opportunity to actually breathe and take some time to practice some things that maybe we've wanted to put in place that we didn't really have time for before. So.
Well, we have so much more to offer than we ever knew we had. Things like you can order online and then drive up and pick things up. So many different places, whether it's Home Depot or restaurants or all kinds of grocery store shopping.
Right. For me personally, I've been really selective about the truth leaders that I want to follow. And one of the things that I heard most recently was the fact that adults learn differently than children. Children have to do it in snippets and little bites and maybe 30 minutes and they need a break. Adults do best in an immersion program. You want to learn a foreign language, go move to Italy for a month, right? We're in an immersion program with an opportunity to really assess what's important to us. And I've never had the opportunity to practice this before. And I'm going to take the time or make the time to do that. could be meditation, it could be a new skill. I'm going to read a book on decision making. Whatever it is, it's controlling what you can control and taking action. And the universe rewards people in action. So I know we're going to get there late. The worst thing that can happen is to stay stuck and to get caught up, watching all the messaging on television and, not having a routine where you're staying in your pajamas, because it's a downward spiral and it's going to impact you and your lack of readiness. You're going to be in quicksand when everybody else has been trying to get kind of pliable, if you will, and look for those opportunities.
Well, and this kind of ties into it, but we're thinking about, you're talking mostly about how to cope during this period. What are some of the strategies you propose to get ready for the comeback?
Well, I think it's, taking care of yourself and having a really strong personal foundation, and then really focusing on solutions and getting quicker about your decisions. So not allowing yourself to get flat-footed, if you will, and, not responding, those kinds of things. And it's a perfect time to practice, right? But you also have to have visioning beyond where you're currently at right now. So you want to have a focus on, like my one group completes June 2nd. We're focusing on June 30th. And this week we're actually doing a sprint goal. Let's focus on one thing and really focus on that. And what it's doing is it's keeping your resiliency muscle going, and it's keeping your resourcefulness going so that you can continue to be in solution mode. And one little accomplishment every day is going to set you up to win the next day. So the more you can kind of stay above the curve, if you will, you're going to be more ready to do that. Now, clearly businesses, some are reinventing their whole business and coming to the table with a lot of, different things than they never ever would have thought before. A couple of examples, we had some third grade teachers that got together right away and decided amongst themselves what the curriculum was going to be and how to deliver it to their kids. And they were upline within a week, right? So that kind of resiliency allows that to happen. And I just, here in California, we're actually able to play golf. And I started last week. I have a few women that play on Friday mornings. And one of them shared with me that their daughters were really missing their classmates. They went out and got jobs. They actually got a job working for a grocery where they're bagging online orders. So they're in a social environment. They took that initiative to do that. And the other one's working at a Dutch Brothers Coffee and, filling a barista job. So there are people hiring. You just have to focus on what's going to get you ready for next. A lot of people are reinventing programs. I'm looking at the latter part of the year. Things are shifting. Things are moving, but they're in play. Actions are in play. So I think that was mostly what I wanted to say. And it's really about staying solution focused and actually aligned with what you can control. Because the one day that I kind of started watching a little bit too much news and I started working on my trust and my beneficiaries, and all of a sudden the seesaw got really out of balance and I was depressed. You've got to keep the seesaw balanced. So seeking positive sources of information, watching comedy things on television, laughing more, trying to get all those other energies going, because there's no question we are in a survival state, but what you do to be positive is going to help you to see some solutions in that.
I think that must be true. And when we think about going from one side of isolation to some degree, and then to the other side of, hey, we're free again, and I'm not sure we're going to really move from one side to the other. I'm not sure what we had before is going to be what we have in the future. Mm-hmm. I'd like your thoughts on that. But the other thing is, do you think maybe we'll appreciate some things a little bit more?
Yeah. I definitely do. I do believe, my goal for everyone is that when we come on the other side of COVID, whatever your impact was from that we're actually better than we were before. And that we're able to put some things in place that we never really took notice or took stock of before. So it'll never be the same. There'll be pre-COVID and post-COVID, just like 9/11. But we have an opportunity to learn some things about ourselves and the people and connecting. And I think more people are going to be using virtual solutions to things that make sense, right? And Yeah, I miss my granddaughters terribly, but I mean, they actually saw, services and birthdays via Zoom, and having all grandparents on the phone at the same time. I mean, there's things that are working if we allow ourselves, and we're going to want to carry those forward. We just are. So.
Yeah, there's a number of things that you start thinking, well, maybe it could be done this way in the future, and that's not so bad.
No, and so when I was saying about the long immersion program, we get to practice it. We get to learn something new. We get to test those muscles. I mean, even my brother's on Zoom. I would have never figured that, would happen with him. But it's you miss certain things. Yeah, and there's tips out there now on how to make it more engaging. So one of my clients is a college professor, and she had to go to Zoom. Her other teachers didn't go to Zoom. They just dumped a bunch of homework on everybody, and then they're doing what they're doing, right? But this teacher wanted to be in front of her students, and she said, it's not the same. I don't have the energy, and I can't see them really in the eye. And, she's doing all the widgets, she's doing breakouts and all that kind of stuff. And sure enough, on LinkedIn, how to make Zoom meetings or virtual meetings more engaging. And maybe you do something different. You bring music in, or you, whatever it is, you've just got to recognize it, that it's a little bit flat, but it's still got some benefits to it for sure. So
one of the things that goes through my mind is, I think we got into all about me so strongly, and how we looked, and it had to be, whether it's your hair or your fingernails or your body or whatever it is, we got into so much meism. And I'm kind of hoping that goes away a little bit, and that smooths out, and we start really thinking more about the people around us and what we can do to help them, rather than all about me. Any thoughts on that?
I have a heightened listening for the examples that are really stepping up, and really showing some things. And I think, we have a tendency to use scarcity conversations around time and money and ideas to hold us back. And in reality, we all have 168 hours in a week. It's what were we doing with the time, and what was I doing with the money? And I have to really look at, did I really need to go out to eat that much? Did I really, I'm saying I don't have money to do this, but I certainly have. You'll find time and money to do what you want. And it's an opportunity to look, am I really using my resources to its best advantage? And now's my opportunity to retrain myself and reset some priorities and pivot, and change some things. And that's not going to happen like that again, where collectively as a species, we're actually all able to maneuver pretty well. I think it's going to be a really positive thing, once we can get past the fear and the uncertainty of what the medical community is dealing with to try to manage the outbreak. And I had one, I think it was Darren Hardy quoted, it's going from outbreak to breakthrough. You've got to still use those resiliency skills to kind of keep yourself balanced and on your toe. And another quote from one of my other coaches that I really loved was, are you running away from the starting line, or are you running towards the finish line? We don't know where the finish line is, but we certainly know that it's not the starting line. And so even the most incremental, smallest baby step is going to move you. And when you can acknowledge yourself for that, or acknowledge somebody else for that, that feel-good endorphin is going to really carry you forward the next day. And so that's where the mindset and your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings all have to be protected. They really have to be protected right now, because they'll either be your best friend or they'll set you back for sure.
I was concerned about the group that you are on the board for, the Stand Up Placer, do you say?
Yeah, it's Placer County, outside of Sacramento.
And I'm wondering what special problems that they have been handling and having.
Well, I think, I appreciate your question on this, because I actually have a success that I can share with the readers, which as a business owner and a business student, it when I look back on it, it really had the critical success factors of everything that I've been talking about here. And it was a pretty big miracle. But just to speak about the problem in general, and we support survivors of these conditions from all genders. And the reality is, not everybody is safe at home. So when we look at haves and have-nots, we've put people in home and put them in their in the line of, with their perpetrator or with their abuser in most cases. And so I know that for Sacramento and for us, we've talked, and the symptom is the phone's not ringing. We're not getting calls, and you wouldn't expect to get calls because it's not safe for them to call. But we're anticipating that when we are starting to go back to a new normal, those calls will happen again, and we're going to have a surge and a peak because the incidences are still happening. So what I would say to your listeners, pay attention to your neighbors, because if the calls that are happening are going to the police department for domestic abuse, domestic calls, right? So that's where it's showing up, and that still may be going on. So don't be afraid to get involved if you hear something and call, just call, because that might be the only help that this person or this family, these children can actually get. And when you look at how frayed our emotions and our feelings are anyway, you layer this on top of something that's already fractured. The Mental Health Association, they're struggling, because those patients already have a compromised mental state, if you will. And so trying to comprehend what's going on is really, really hard. But what I find most special is that mid-March, like March 11th, my executive director and I were talking about our major fundraiser, which was supposed to happen on the 21st, which was a live event. And the calls were starting to trickle in. Well, what about are you going to make a call, whatever, right? Well, I sent her off to just go see if we could find some alternate dates. And then the next morning, the NBA shuts down, and now you've got big stuff going on, right? And so we were fortunate enough to secure one of our donors, and he committed a matching grant. We rebranded our campaign to Stand Up Now. And so from, we say, Friday the 13th to April 1st, we were actually able to raise over $42,000 on our own, and he matched 40 by 40,000. So in less than 18 days, we were able to replace that money that was deferred by the dance. And now we have some funds available for what we need in this fiscal year to be able to do that. So that was obviously a generous donor. It was a single focus. When we had one campaign, that was all we were focused on. We were positive. It was a solution. There was great messaging. But to your point, the community stepped up. They had just donated at the end of the year, and they were ready to donate again. So, and we get to take that success forward. And I share it with anybody because very creative, very positive, and a huge result for the organization and for our survivors. There's one other part of that that's interesting. Just a second. Our staff has been impacted, and our staff has been impacted because they're disconnected from their team. They're all working from home as well. Our safe house, we can't take in anybody because our safe house is, sequestered in place. They obviously have their own anxiety, so they're doing all the things that we're talking about doing. But they also have the added, frontline issue of they were working with survivors and moving forward within a court system that completely shut down. So restraining orders, childcare, custody, all those kinds of things where we were helping people. So there's almost a compassion fatigue backlash around them not being able to do their jobs completely because of the situation. So like I said, everybody has a unique situation. But I do think staying positive, staying focused on the fact that we will get through this, being disciplined with the new habits that you're learning, and try to limit your news intake to 10 minutes a day. Pick somebody that you really believe in as a source of truth. And some say know that if something's really serious, your neighbor's going to come and tell you. It's just, you have to just manage your mind and your emotions as much as you can to be able to be positive and see solutions and actually keep moving yourself forward as best as you can. So,
Tyra, if somebody wanted to donate, is there a link on the website, or what would you give us where it is?
Yeah. If you go to standupplacer.org, our website will have a link on there for sure. And our Stand Up Now campaign is still running. We've decided to keep it up and running. So there's an ability to continue to add to this campaign, even though the matching grant part is complete. But the donations are still going on. And, I would say we all have to look and realize how fortunate we are and do what we can to help those that really don't have those same opportunities. And, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a lot of people doing a little, is the way I see it. So.
Well, thank you so much for contributing and giving us all the information, not only from your personal counseling business, but also from the other side of people that are hurting that we may not see every day.
Yeah. No,
Thank you so much.
thanks for the opportunity, man. I really appreciate it. Take care.